Hello everyone, in this lesson we are going to learn how to complete the square dealing with a binomial. If we have a binomial like this x squared minus 16x, how do we complete the square? So let's do a quick little review of what a square is. Alright, so here we go, we have a 1 by 1, here we have a 2 by 2, here we have a 3 by 3, and you can kind of see, this is 1 square unit, this is 4 square units, this is 9 square units. Oops, too many dots there. 9 square units. So we call this 1 unit squared. We call this 4 units squared, and this is going to be 9 units squared. Alright, because this is a 1 by 1, this is a 2 by 2, and this is a 3 by 3. Alright, well, what if we have like a square? You don't know all the, let's say we don't know the dimensions, okay? But we know this side is x plus, we'll break it into pieces here. So let's say we don't know the dimensions. We just know that like this is an x and this is a 1, so we call this x plus 1. Well, this side over here would also have to be an x and a 1. It'd also have to be an x plus a 1. And when you're multiplying two binomials, it's the FOIL method. Alright, you can do the FOIL method, but this is also known as the array method. We would do x times x and put x squared, x times 1, which is x, x times 1, which is x, and then 1 times 1, which is 1. And this would become x squared plus, you know you have an x and an x, so that's a total of 2 x's, plus 1. Now, this becomes x plus 1 squared. Alright, so if you had just x squared plus 2x, and they said, could you please fill in the constant here at the end, our constant is the number 1. Well, how do we complete the square without having to do a whole bunch of math? It's a very, 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 very simple process. And so if you have ax squared plus bx plus c, and we have what's known as a perfect square trinomial. Alright, and I'm going to give you some example of perfect square trinomials. X squared plus 2x plus 1, x squared minus 2x plus 1. And I'm going to go ahead and write up a list here. I'm going to pause the video, write up a list, and then we'll take a look at these. Alright, so what we're dealing right here is called the sum of squares, and if you Googled it, you probably come up with this pattern here. But I'm going to show you a very, very easy way to help you guys understand this pattern. So here we have x squared plus 2x plus 1. We know that factors to x plus 1 squared. Alright? Now, because 1 plus 1 is 2 and 1 times 1 is 1. Over here, this is going to factor to x minus 1 being squared, which basically means you have x minus 1 times x minus 1. Just like over here, this would equal x plus 1 times x plus 1. Alright. Now, these trinomials make perfect squares. When I say perfect squares, I mean that they literally, the dimensions are the dimensions of a square. If I say right here, the area of this square was x squared plus 4x plus 4, what would be the dimensions of the side? That would be x plus 2 times x plus 2. So this becomes x plus 2 squared, known as x plus 2 times x plus 2. Now there's kind of a cool little pattern that eventually I'm hoping that you guys will be able to see. Alright, and the pattern is this. If I take half this number and then square it, it always becomes this number. What's half of negative 4? Negative 2. What's negative 2 times negative 2? Positive 4. So that becomes x minus 2 squared. What's half this number? What's half of 6? Half of 6 is 3. What's 3 times 3? 9. So that becomes x plus 3 squared. What's half of this? negative 3. What's negative 3 times negative 3? Positive 9. It becomes x minus 3 squared. And the pattern just keeps going on forever. I'm going to stop right here, and then we'll start doing some problems. So this becomes x plus 4 squared, because half of 8 is 4, and 4 times 4 is 16. It's half of negative 8, negative 4. So this becomes x minus 4 squared. So these are all perfect square trinomials. So here's the pattern. If your a value, if this a value right here has to be the number 1, okay, and you have the b value, if you want to know what the c value is going to be, all right, this c value will always be whatever the b value is divided by 2 squared. That's what you're going to have to do every single time. Whatever this b value is, if the a value is 1, you have to make sure the a value is 1. Just like this is a 1, and that's a 1, and that's a 1, and that's a 1. The a value has to be 1. Then all you have to do is take half the b value, and then you square it. All right? So the c value, this is the most important part. The c value is always half the b value squared, which allows me to go right over here to our very first problem. And it says, what is the missing constant term in the perfect square that starts with x squared minus 16x? Well, all I have to do is take half of this, which is negative 16, divided by 2, and square it. Well, what is half of that? Half of that is negative 8. And negative 8 times negative 8 is 64. So I'm going to put 64. Now the next few questions are going to be very, very, very easy. All right, but the concept that you need to know is that you have to take half the b value. Whatever this b value is, take half of it and square it. Type in a 64. Okay, well, you've already actually done this problem. All right, well, let's take half of this number. Well, half of this number is negative 2. Well, what is negative 2 times negative 2? That's equal to a positive 4. So I'd have to put a plus 4 to make my perfect square trinomial. Because this would become x minus 2 squared. So I'm going to put the number 4. So what did I do once again? Take half that number and square it. Well, that's an easy one. What's half that? Half that is 1. What's 1 times 1? 1. You're like, what did you just do there? All I did was take 2 divided by 2. I got 2 divided by 2, which is 1, and then I squared it. And 1 times 1 is 1. So that's why I put a number 1 there. Okay? What is half of 12? Half of 12 is negative 6. Well, what is negative 6 squared? Negative 6 squared is 36. I'm going to put a 36 right there. So this is going to be a very, very easy assignment. All you got to do is take half that number and square it. All right? Now, before I finish this off, if I had x squared minus 12x and I put plus 36, what does this factor to? That's going to be the important part that you take away from this. That factors to x minus 6 squared. Why? Because negative 6 plus negative 6 is negative 12, and negative 6 times negative 6 is positive 36. All right, so now you should be able to do this assignment. You'll have a good day.